Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne here with you on this Thursday morning. Big show lined up. Going to start off with Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, covering the Georgia Bulldogs, going for the three-peat. Big recruiting news. We're going to get into that. And, man, what a quarterback room they are building at Georgia. How many schools in America? I don't know of any schools. Ohio State's been doing that. Alabama is struggling right now to find a quarterback, but Georgia – they're bringing them in. It's incredible. Gary Harris will check in the next segment. Tide 100.9 WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa. Of course, he does a great show Tuesday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central with Rodney Orr, our good friend from Tider Insider. So lots to talk about there. Hour number 2, Coach Matt Dean checks in from Rhodes College over in Memphis. And John Hartwell, the other half of the AD angle, will be out this morning. Talked to John for a while last night. He's roughing it down in Destin and 30A at the Sandestin Hilton. They're having the Sun Belt Conference meetings, but he'll be on with us Friday morning, batting in the leadoff position tomorrow at 8 a.m. Central. And Yancey Porter will be on in the fourth segment today, Rebel Yell Hotline. And he's got a lot to talk about right there. And let's say this, we do 25 shows at least a month. 50 hours plus content, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central. Follow us on Twitter at @sidelines_live. Proud to be here. And let's just say this, Jordan Hill is up with us. I'm not sure if it's early for Jordan. He probably gets up about 5:30 or 6 and goes for a run or a swim. But he probably was up late last night looking at a laptop, trying to stay in touch and stay ahead of all the chatter. Isn't it crazy, Jordan? Every night, the stuff that you hear, you're like, who comes up with this stuff? Do they have writers like the David Letterman show to come up with it? But how you doing?
Doing good, and yeah, not too early for me. And hey, I know we'll get into it, but I want to give a shout out to Dylan Raiola for announcing it like noon Eastern, because he's out in Arizona, and I was just convinced, Rob, I'd be like laying in bed and look at like midnight and be like, oh man, all right, I gotta get up.
Yeah. Well, this is huge. This is just really big news. This kid making that announcement. And that's going to be what? That's 2 quarterbacks in this class. Am I correct?
Yeah, they already had Ryan Puglisi. He had committed, I believe, in October. He had been on board for a little bit, and I had talked about this the other night, but they've had the plan to get 2 scholarships, to give 2 scholarships this year. They didn't sign any quarterbacks in last year's cycle after going after Arch Manning. So Puglisi's on board, and I think he knew the plan all along. So they're going to try to get those 2 guys, him and Dylan Raiola as well.
Well, you look at the quarterback situation, that's real strong. The number one need everybody has in the SEC, that's what sets this league apart from everybody else, is the front 7 talent. You lose Jalen Carter, you had 10 guys drafted off this Georgia team. That's 25 in the last season. There are schools out there in America that haven't had 25 players drafted in 130 years. Just another day at the office for Georgia. Are you enjoying this?
Yeah, I mean, it makes my job easy, and I think it's a credit. People have asked me how they do this, and it's just because they recruit so well. I mean, they've gotten to where Alabama was really at the height of the dynasty, where you're looking at the 2 deep, and you're going, wasn't this backup a 5-star? I mean, like it's guys like that they're able to get in and convince you to wait their time, to bide their time, which is hard. And I give a lot of credit to the guys who are willing to stick around and wait to get their shot. But yeah, I mean, it's a credit to how they've recruited. And also, I mean, that it takes developing those guys too. And, even look at some of those guys who became, big draft picks. I think about Jordan Davis. I mean, he was a guy that developed over his time at Georgia. So they've done a very good job on both fronts, getting really talented guys in, but getting plenty of guys in who, they were still highly thought of in the recruiting world, but they helped them take several steps forward in their game by the time it was time to go to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Jordan Davis, 6'7", 340. He came out of Charlotte as a 3-star, but really a basketball player. But again, shows you the importance of multi-sport athletes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And Broderick Jones, who just got drafted by the Steelers, he was a big basketball player. I feel like half the
Yeah.
time we talked to him, we talked about as much basketball as we did football just because he grew up. He was a big basketball guy. But yeah, I mean, you need that athleticism and you need guys who are able to do a little bit of everything. And to have that in your background, especially like if you look at Broderick Jones, think about footwork, think about, just the athleticism that it takes to play basketball, and he was a really good basketball player in high school. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it too, and I think people are learning more and more. It seems like there was a phase where people were really big on specializing their kid in a certain sport, and I think it's kind of come back to where people realize that there are advantages to having your kids play different sports and getting kind of a different background. And I don't know if Georgia, when it comes to recruiting, really worries about that, but they've gotten plenty of guys who could play different sports, and it's wound up working out really well for them.
Well, you get the big guys. You get a lineman that's played soccer. That's going to help. And you see more and more of that the wave of Nigerian kids that are coming into America. And these kids are all 5.0 GPAs. They're a lot of them pre-med, engineering majors, architecture. It's just a serious thing that's going on. But man, I like the multi-sport athlete. I think it's less wear and tear on your body. Looking at this, Athlon did I know the draft has already come and gone, but just looking at the top 12, 15 players, you as a Georgia, guy covering Georgia, and you covered Auburn, you go back and look at the number of guys that Auburn recruited, and they lost out on every one of those guys. Miles Murphy, Broderick Jones. I mean, they were working Broderick Friday night trying to get him to come down before signing date. And he got hotboxed at a basketball game and did not. And you hope if you're Auburn that happens. But when Georgia, they are not losing recruiting battles. I mean, they didn't get Arch Manning, but the state of Georgia putting out about 250 players a year, even with Georgia State and Kennesaw, coming on board. It's just making Georgia even better. It's hard to believe. And they're going to get some of those players, but if Georgia wants you and you're in state, good luck.
Yeah, and it wasn't always that easy for Georgia. I think about Kirby's first signing class. Two really notable misses was Derek Browne going to Auburn. They wanted him badly. And Demetrius Robertson, who went to Cal and in the long run winds up coming back to Georgia. But I think that kind of raised the standard. After that, Tracy Rocker wasn't at Georgia a whole lot longer after they weren't able to land Derek Browne. And I think they've got a high standard when it comes to recruiting, and they're in such a good spot now. And I've talked about it a good bit when you look at some of our national coverage with recruiting, that they can expand and recruit the entire nation, and then look at the state of Georgia and say, all right, well, we want this guy, and this guy, and then go elsewhere. Because really, when you look at the 2023 class, as far as recruits from the state of Georgia, is a little bit weaker than we're used to. And I think it's going to come up. I think 2024 on the whole is a good bit stronger. But they didn't get a class that's just full of guys that grew up Georgia fans and things like that. They got several Georgia guys, but also they went into Texas. They went pretty much all around to get guys to land what I think wound up being, a top 3 class once again.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, Kaylee Ringo out of Scottsdale, Arizona, Phoenix, Darnell Washington, Las Vegas, Brock Bowers, Napa Valley, California, and grew up in wine country. And they're all impact players. I was surprised Kaylee Ringo went in the 4th or the 6th round.
I believe the 4th round.
Yeah, but that's where Stetson Bennett went, And I think Stetson Bennett, I think he was 14th or 15th in that Athlon preview of the quarterbacks. What constitutes being a great quarterback? The measurables, your 40 time, your vertical jump, or your win-loss record, and how much you help make a difference in every game, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I think that everything has to factor in. I think sometimes people get stuck on the tangible, the measurables, and
Yeah.
that there are guys who have broken that mold. I mean, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees come off the top of my head, and I get why there's sort of guidelines and there's sort of rules, but there are exceptions to the rule. And I say that and say I don't know how Stetson will play in the NFL. I think he can stick around. I thought that a very intriguing landing spot going to the Rams. What intrigues me the most, and I've written about this a couple times now, is that he goes to a team that had Baker Mayfield last year. Matthew Stafford gets hurt. They signed Baker and let him roll with it for a while. And when Stetson first kind of popped on the scene, it was because he was imitating Baker essentially with the scout team getting ready for the Rose Bowl when Georgia played Oklahoma. So there's some skill set there. So I think that probably helps Stetson, that this coaching staff has worked with a quarterback before with his sort of skill set, and they can kind of sell, at least go in understanding, well, this worked for Baker. Let's see how we can do it with Stetson. I think they've signed another quarterback since that draft, but at the time it was only him and Matthew Stafford, and Matthew Stafford's not getting any younger. I mean, I think he's 37 or 38 and had some major injuries last year. Stetson's got a really good starting spot. Now, how much he'll play, we'll see. But he's got a chance to prove himself, and it could be a situation where, only in a couple short years, Stafford may not be playing for a whole lot longer and could set Stetson up really, really well.
Well, and that's two Georgia guys too. I mean, I remember Matthew Stafford when he came on the scene back in 2006. They beat Auburn 37-15. He had 8 carries up the middle for 73 yards. I mean, he came on the scene and really turned Georgia around the latter half of the 06 season, 07, 08. 07, that team was close to playing for a national championship. And poor guy, I really feel, I don't feel sorry for anybody, really. I have empathy for someone being drafted by the Detroit Lions. It's like going into the dreaded 11 a.m. kickoff, the witness protection program. And he endured through all that and wins the Super Bowl his first year with the LA Rams. I mean, that's a pretty awesome story. But Stetson Bennett, I mean, what's the knock on him? He gets, he's out there in Texas and Dallas, and he's supposed to be staying with a friend. He can't get the address right. If I told you the number of people that can't find the cherry farm, this is a 7,000-acre house right on the highway out here in the country. They'll pass right by it, including my own kids. I'm like, how do you miss this house? So, people, they want to pick at Stetson. I don't know him. You've been around him. He's a pretty likable guy, I would think. I mean, do you want a quarterback who's a wallflower, or do you want one that's cocky? I mean,
I always enjoyed talking to Stetson, and he didn't put up with BS. If you asked him a question he didn't like, you could pretty much tell. But there were plenty of times you would ask Stetson something, and you could really see him trying to process it and give a thoughtful answer. And there's a lot of guys that don't do that, and there's no shame in that. But I always enjoyed talking to Stetson. He made some mistakes, but I get when you're on that sort of you've got that kind of attention that people are going to notice stuff like that. But I think that he'll mature in this opportunity, and my biggest thing with him is just for his own sake. I hope he recognizes he's got a really good situation working with Sean McVay and a veteran NFL quarterback who, like you said, had won a Super Bowl. It sets up well for him. It's going to be up to him to try to maximize that.
Yeah. Another question for you, Jalen Carter. I mean, we know what happened, that tragic car wreck. I mean, that's an awful deal. And people thought he might be a number 1 pick. He goes to number 9, I think, with the Eagles. He'll be up there in Philadelphia. I would think it'd be a good idea for him to get to know Jalen Hurts. Talk about just a good mentor. I like Jalen Hurts, but you've been around Jalen Carter. I mean, golly, I remember when I was 22. I mean, you do some crazy stuff, and I don't know the circumstances, but how good can Jalen Carter be, and how much does he have to go forward? I mean, I don't know what he's got to deal with, but this guy is so talented. In fact, you had Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. I mean, guys like that on that line last few years, and there's more of them stacked up behind them. That's the scary part.
Well, for me, looking at it as it played out, I think this is a perfect situation for Jalen Carter. I mean, go to Philadelphia, a team that just played for the Super Bowl, probably should have won the Super Bowl and just wasn't able to close. But he's surrounded by a lot of familiar faces. Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, they draft Nolan Smith later in the first round. Then they get Keely Ringo later in the fourth round like we talked about. I think that's going to help him a lot. And there's a lot of people, a lot of Falcons fans I know that were so mad that
exactly.
they did not get him. But I mean, I just think if he stays in the state of Georgia, it doesn't end well. Just because all the attention that has surrounded him since that wreck was still going to be there. A lot of the same media that have been really digging into that and covering that was not going to go away. And, he goes to Philadelphia. It's kind of a fresh start. That doesn't erase what happened. He's got to live with that and the repercussions from that. But it is sort of a chance to start a new chapter. So I think it sets up well for him. I think that he's joining a really good Philadelphia defense, a defense that a lot of people are now convinced, by the way, could wind up setting the modern era record for sacks in a season just because of how they've made this defense even better. So I think on the whole, it worked out really, really well for Jalen. Very talented guy. Again, it's just sort of up to him to make the most of this opportunity and make sure that he's there and ready to work every day.
Yeah. Just a few more minutes. I'll keep you if you can. After the break, got some more questions. That thing about the Falcons and the Eagles, I want to expand on that because you nailed it. Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports with us, covering Georgia right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Okay, Rob Browne back here with you on this Thursday morning with Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports. And Jordan, you mentioned the Eagles drafted Jalen Carter. They got Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean out of Horn Lake on the Mississippi side of Memphis. And they get Jalen Carter. That's what, 4 Bulldogs?
I think they've got 5 because they had Keely too. So they had 2 in the draft 2 years ago and then drafted 3 this year.
Okay, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean,
Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter.
And Keely Ringo. Okay. Wow. Yeah, probably is. But again, I spend a lot of time in Atlanta. Our oldest daughter lives over there, and she went to Alabama. Still a good person. But I'm telling you, the Falcons fans, and they have a lot in common with Job. Long suffering, 2 Super Bowl trips, and nobody has suffered that loss to New England. That set the franchise back 100 years, but that's impossible because they're not 100 years old. But they don't, and you're right about Jalen Carter. That probably is good for him. It's fate would have it that he gets drafted by a team away. But why do they ever come out publicly and say why we don't recruit? Because Look at the Braves, what they do. They recruit like a college team. That's what Billy Roberts and Tyler Keelan, Frank Duffy, all my friends over in Atlanta that are, I call them Bravesologists. They're not casual baseball fans. They watch every game like the stock market. But the Braves have got all these guys like, Austin. Austin Riley's from South Haven, right next to Horn Lake, where N'Kobe Dean's from. Pretty good third baseman, but and then they got the kids from Curacao, Andrew Jones kids, like Ozzie Albies. Why don't the Falcons go, hey, man, that works. Let's do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the biggest criticism that, you see every year with the Falcons. People were so mad last year when they not only skipped getting N'Kobe Dean, but they got Troy Anderson, who was a linebacker from Montana State. And our message board was not very happy with that. I don't know, why they, do what they do, because I know that they're not going to be beholden to the home teams. I mean, they did draft 2 Georgia players last year, but it was later in the draft, Justin Schaefer and John Fitzpatrick too. So, I'm a Falcons fan. I've kind of, after 28-3, it's kind of died a little bit, but I still follow them. But
sure,
I'm gonna hold out a little bit of hope for Bijan Robinson. At least it'll be fun. They're not gonna win. They're never, 28-3 taught us all the Falcons are never gonna win. So at least let's hope they'll be fun. And that's all I'm asking for with Bijan Robinson. At least be fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, he is a hell of a running back. I mean, he's big. What is he? 6'1", 220?
Something like that. I know my favorite thing to do after a Falcons draft, even if I don't like a pick they make, is go to the highlights on YouTube. And then I talk myself into, this will be a really good pick. And it rarely happens, but I do it anyway.
Well, he's got his own NIL deal, I know, in Texas, Bijan Mustard. And Ken Capps, my friend, Football Writers Association of America out of Dallas, sent me a jar of it. It got devoured. It was good. I'm sure he made that himself.
Oh, I bet.
But anyway, that's NIL. But a few more minutes here. Georgia in this offseason, is there such a thing as an offseason anymore? And, the portal has ended. It was April 15th to April 30th. If you're a grad transfer, you can move around. I want to just say, you go back to the quarterback from Wake Forest a couple of years ago. That didn't work out. Are you starting to see a trend in the portal? 70% of the top 100 players are signing with 8 schools in a given year. If you see a Power 5 to Power 5 move, it's pretty rare that you have a Joe Burrow or Jameson Williams. You're seeing more Power 5 down to Group of 5 or Division 2, or Group of 5 up to Power 5, but not a lot of lateral movement. Is that the trend that you've seen develop? Is that where we're going?
I think so. I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, you will see some movement from Power 5 to Power 5, but a lot of it is guys who sort of outplayed, I guess, their level of competition get a chance to move up, or guys who were at a school like Georgia, Alabama, Clemson didn't get to play and decide to transfer and try to play elsewhere. But I'm really fascinated just with the recruiting calendar and seeing if anything changes. And I'll be lucky in a couple of weeks. I'll be at SEC spring meetings and just to hear what these coaches have to say, because these are the guys that are having to go, all the time. And, there's already been a lot of talk about, burnout, about guys at the college level, coaches at the college level jumping to the NFL just because of the hours. And, the way the calendar's set up right now is not helping. Now the fact that players can take unlimited official visits, I don't think coaches are happy about that, because in theory that would mean a whole lot more guys coming than would typically come to your campus. So it'll be fascinating just to see what they do with the calendar. There wasn't as much movement in that spring portal compared to the one that was in December and January. But something's got to change just for the sake of the coaches and to try to keep, the best coaches at this level. I think there is real legitimate burnout. And if they're not careful, there's going to be a whole lot more really good coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, staffers, all that, who decide, I'm going to go coach on Sundays instead.
Yeah, and keep an eye on Malik Murphy and the deal out there at Texas and Arch Manning. I got a something from a good friend who's a Texas fanatic. His brother played football there. That's an interesting one to watch. I don't think Arch Manning wants to be in the middle of all that. And, I just think that the portal used to be you got cut or you quit. You kind of had to deal with the embarrassment of it. Now, 45% of these guys in the portal, they're just orphans. They're not getting picked up by anybody. So it's an easy place to go hide. And I'm looking at the trend. It's basically a windfall for Power 5 programs. Guys are going, they're making UAB and Troy, and they're making South Alabama happy, but you're not seeing too many guys. I mean, Jermaine Burton last year, the receiver, left Georgia, went to Alabama. I mean, he didn't do anything spectacular last year. He ran off the field in Knoxville and got a lot of notoriety for that. And honestly, I was at that game. If you're down on that field, and you know what I'm talking about, Jordan, I'd have been pretty scared. Just get me out of there. But anyway, Jordan, look, thank you so much for taking time to join us, and let people know how they can keep up with you, because I got a kick out of what you said about the Falcons, because I've always pulled for the Falcons because I went there as a kid on my 6th grade trip, and William Andrews played there, and Tommy Nobis, Pat Sullivan. I'm with you, but I grew up Cowboys junkie, but also the Falcons. And it's like Cardinals, grown up with them, but I cannot help but always pull for the Braves, especially once I got to Auburn. There are no other teams in baseball, are there?
No chance. But yeah, dogs247.com, on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at dogs247. It keeps on rolling. The Georgia's got a lot of recruits coming in this weekend, so no rest coming anytime soon, but a lot of good content, and I'd recommend everybody go out to Dogs247 and make sure to keep up with everything going on.
Yeah, I watched you on the TV thing the other night talking about the big recruiting news. You got a great studio there. But anyway, Jordan Hill, thank you so much. Look forward to having you on next week, as we always do. And go Dogs.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, you bet. All right, we're going to be joined by Gary Harris here in just a moment. Tide 100.9 WVUA TV, Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. God, you're talking with Jordan Hill, who sees firsthand. He gets to interview all these guys at Georgia and different schools too. And that news about Jalen Carter, man, 5 Georgia Bulldogs on the Philadelphia Eagles roster. I'm with him. Why don't the Falcons follow the blueprint from the Atlanta Braves and start signing and drafting players from right there in their backyard? Clemson, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia Tech, Auburn, South Alabama, Troy, Florida State. There's so much talent down here, and maybe it's just that they're too familiar with these guys. I don't know. God bless America. They get paid a lot of money, but a lot of those guys are paid a lot of money, but they're recidivists. Remember that movie Raising Arizona, when they're talking to H.I. McDonough? He's appearing before the parole board, and he says, "Hi, you're not just telling us what we want to hear, are you?" And he goes, "Well, sir, if telling you what you want to hear will get me out of this prison, yes, sir." He goes, "Hi, that's exactly what we don't want you to do. You're a recidivist, huh? Repeat offender." Maybe that's what the problem is. I don't know. But the draft is an inexact science. But if you look at the breakdown of these players, I mean, Clemson, Miles Murphy, Will Anderson Jr. out of Hampton, Georgia, south of Atlanta. Georgia didn't recruit him until I think they came in late. Will had 5 older sisters. He still does. Tough kid. Number 3 pick in the draft. Bryce Young out of Santa Ana, California. I think his parents are Southern Cal or UCLA people. He comes to Alabama, and you got to say there's a couple of ways you can talk about Bryce Young, and I'm going to bring in Gary Harris with us right now. Gary, hope you're doing well this morning. I love it. The WeatherTech cup holder. We need to get them as a sponsor for the show because you are mobile. But I was just going to say, is Bryce Young from Santa Ana, California, I think. Parents are Southern Cal or UCLA people. He comes to Alabama. Is he the greatest quarterback that you've ever seen at Alabama? And is he the best player ever to leave without a national championship ring? Because I don't care if he's 5'10" or 6'5". You don't see quarterbacks. He doesn't get rattled, and he produces. And last year, he willed Alabama to more than a couple of wins.
Yeah, he's an incredible player, and yeah, I certainly understand what you're saying, Rob. I do want to, for just the point of clarification, he has a national championship ring. Now, granted, he was the starter, but he was his freshman season.
That's right.
He
You're
backed
right.
up Mac Jones, so he has one. I mean,
Yeah.
how that is as a team member, whether you're a starter or not, it still means a lot to you. But right,
Hell yeah.
2 years as a starter, and I guess that's what it's come to at Alabama. If you're a great player and you don't. You start for 2 years and you don't win a national championship, it's considered a negative. And we know there's players all over the country who, would like to just be in the hunt for one. But yeah, he's got everything that you look for, and he's got God-given talent, and he came from a great family that, let's just be honest. I think of this probably more with golfers, with, Tiger Woods, from the time he was, 2 years old. Earl had him in the, had him swinging a golf club. I think Bryce Young was, born with the tools and the talent and the gifts. And then he had a dad and Craig Young and a mom that was supportive. And he really started working to be a quarterback from a very young age. And that's all that he ever was in football was a quarterback. He didn't, he didn't play anything else as far as a position. And he started, training and doing all the things, not just playing football, but, as far as the diet and the mental training. So there's a lot, the talent's there, but I think there's a lot that goes into the fact that, he's a phenom. And I think a lot of it has to do with his background. And then, of course, the decision to go to Modern Day and play in that program and play in all those big time games and, commit to USC. And then eventually wind up at Alabama and had the year, which, it's a strange year for all those freshmen to come in the COVID year. It just really was. No freshman class had ever had to deal with that. And, and then with Mac Jones being the starter and Alabama playing a conference-only schedule, as everybody in the SEC did, it wasn't an opportunity for a backup quarterback to play much. You didn't, some mop-up time, I get that. But as far as heat of the battle, and even in mop-up time, you're playing in the SEC, so mop-up time is a little different when you're playing a conference game as opposed to when you're playing a non-conference opponent. The game might be over, in the second quarter. So he didn't play much, but the minute, so I said that to get to this. As good as he is, and as much as we thought we knew about Bryce Young, we didn't know for sure. I mean, he'd never been a starter at the college level in 2021. And he stepped in against Miami and just lit them up. And I think a lot of people forget that Miami team in 2021 under Manny Diaz, they were doing a lot of talking about their back and this was going to be their year. And I went to Atlanta for that game. And I remember the Miami fans were pretty confident. And Bryce just went out there and sliced them up. And you knew right then that he was special. And of course, led Alabama to the SEC championship and the national championship game in 2021. And then last year, of course, first time, in his career at Alabama, he had to deal with the injury situation a little bit. But I think he's built for success. I love what Frank Reich and Carolina are doing in terms of, he's QB2 for now. We want to make him earn it. We got Andy Dalton, but there's no doubt in my mind that he'll be the starting quarterback and take that first snap for the Carolina Panthers against the Atlanta Falcons when they open the season in September.
Yeah, and I mean, Carolina made him the number one pick. They did their homework on him. Got Derek Browne up there. They like these SEC kids. I mean, we're just talking with Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports, who covers Georgia, about why don't the Falcons draft more local kids? Why didn't they say, hey, Bryce Young, or why don't they? There were 5 Georgia kids that have been drafted by the Eagles. But I just got a text from a good friend of mine, been in TV a long time out in Austin. He said probably the Falcons don't want to have to deal with all the family members and all that local pressure of signing a bunch of Georgia guys. That's why, as he said, so many kids from Austin, Texas leave and just get the hell out. Where do you think Drew Brees is from? Played at Purdue. He's from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to tell you what, Gary, and we're about to go to a break. There's a lot of stuff I want to cover with you, but I love what you said last week, man. You cracked me up. You said there's a special place in heaven for that man that's done 40-plus years of local TV. But, damn it, the more we have all this satellite and all this other stuff, the more I gravitate back toward my local sports guys, the reporters, the anchors. I mean, I've been in that business. I've done it. I love it. But nobody works harder to get the stories. And nobody is being pushed back further from covering the stories than the local media. And we're going to change that. We're going to talk about it right after this. Gary Harris. All right, Rob Browne back with Gary Harris, mobile guest. I love it, man, on the way into the office this morning. Gary, so you're up. You've got to be up really early. Okay, you're doing your show on Tide 100.9, and I've got the app on my phone from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, Monday through Friday. And then you go in and you do, what, a 5, a 6, and a 10 o'clock sportscast at night?
Yeah. I'm not up that early. That's why you usually catch me driving. Because I don't get home until about 11 at night. So I don't get up. If I'm up by 7:30, that's pretty early. It's usually about 8. But and then as you see, I get to wear a T-shirt, and shorts or sweats or whatever into the radio show. But yeah, it's a long day. I do the 2 hours of radio, then I have the little small midday break to do whatever it is I'm going to do, whether it's work out or, run errands or, whatever, eat lunch, get ready, go to the TV station. And then I'm there, doing 5, 6, and 10. And like I said, home, usually home about 11 after the 10 o'clock news. And, it's every day. And then of course, a lot of the weekends you don't get off either when you're in this business. So I tell people, there's a reason I never got married, several reasons, but that's probably one of them. I mean, it's just, if you choose this line of work and you stay in it, it's not the easiest line of work for a social life and or a family. There's guys that I know that have made it work, and then there's a lot of guys that I know that did it, and then once they got married and had kids, they're like, man, this isn't gonna work, and they either got into news where they could get a more normal schedule, or they got out of the business completely and got into something that was more of a get off at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening type of schedule, and so they could go home.
Yeah. I mean, here's do you ever do any, this is something interesting, just came in from a listener. He goes, I bet Gary, he goes, he's damn good. He goes, I bet he tapes segments for morning show after 10 p.m. news. I mean, I don't know if you ever do that or not, but I remember being in TV on the Eastern time zone in Columbus, Georgia. Hell, we weren't off till, depending on if we started on time, if it was a weekend, CBS, you may not, it was many a night. We didn't leave till well after midnight. And being the youngest reporter, my beat was Fort Benning. I covered everything out there and around there. But I do think that day in and day out, I remember having a conversation with Kevin Kiley and Jim Kelly when they were doing ESPN games back in the late 80s. And I would drive them around Auburn when I get to work with the TV crews coming in. and they said, look, going forward, the future of sports is going to be with the cable. We do this, 24/7, 365 days a year. CBS is doing it 6 hours on the weekends. A lot of times, with NFL coverage, it may be more. And that's why whenever we have a lot of local TV, local radio, local writers on the show, there's such rich conversation. Let's get back. Do you know Keith Donovan, who's now the ESPN college football historian?
I know Keith. I've had him on my show, and yeah, I know Keith, and he's one of the best.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on the show. I was watching. Jackie Sherrill was on the show yesterday. He's going to be back on Friday. We had a technical issue, but and I was telling him the 150th anniversary of college football in 2019. I was watching it again Tuesday night. Every time you see it, and Keith Donovan's on there and quoted, there's something else or two or three more things that you pick up on. Everybody's concerned about a handful of teams at the top, kind of an oligarchy with college football. He referenced back in the 70s, he said, we had sort of a television aristocracy. You pretty much, you could be on 5 times in 2 years, but we had the same teams, Southern Cal, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Michigan, and then you'd get Auburn on, you'd get Georgia on in Tennessee, but it was SEC and then that aristocracy. Well, now where we're going, from a 4 to a 12-team playoff, do you think that we might see, like in 1984 when we had the CFA lawsuit with Georgia and Oklahoma, expanded TV coverage to what it is now? Every game's on TV. You think when we go to the 12-team playoff, we might also have a national championship for the group of 5 schools, kind of like the NCAA March Madness and the NIT, something like that, just to maintain it? Is that Matt Dean brought that up? I want to give credit where it's due. Coach at Rhodes College, that football, basketball for a long time, but he's got a son on Dan Landing's staff, pretty smart guy. I think there'd be a lot of interest.
Yeah, not initially, obviously. Down the road, who knows? I think at first, I think a lot of the group of 5 schools are saying to themselves, this is our opportunity to play for a national championship. I mean, there's going to be 12 spots in this playoff. Years that we've had teams that didn't even get sniffed for a 14 playoff. We want to be, we want to be heard, and we want our spot at the table. So I think initially, just my opinion, there'll be a little bit of pushback from that because I think there's a lot of schools that are saying, well, the power conferences, and I do think there's 12 spots, but I still think there's going to be some pushback to putting a team in there with 3 or 4 losses. Not that it won't happen. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, that gives you, but I think still the thought process in football is, well, if you're 8-4, there's no way you're deserving of a playoff spot, although you might be. So I think some of these group of 5 schools will say, if we're 11-1 in our league or 12-0, we're going to get one of those spots. We're going to get a chance to play for the national championship. Now, down the road, if it doesn't transpire like that, and we turn out in these playoffs are 12 teams, and 11 of them are from the Power 5 schools, and you've got a 9-3 Power 5 school getting in over a 12-0 group of 5 team, even in the 12-team playoff, and the frustration level may say, well, this is ridiculous. We'll never get, we're 12-0, we can't get into a 12-team playoff. Yeah, we need another tournament at the end of the season. So yeah, anything, in my opinion, is possible because it's all going to be about, and as it already is, it's about money. It's about television, streaming. You were talking about those guys, Kevin Kiley and those guys telling you the future was cable. Well, that was true. And now the future is the internet and the streaming and the pay-per-views and the subscription. And I know, initially ESPN's in good shape with the SEC after the CBS contract runs out. And I have no doubt, NBC's got their deal with the Big Ten coming. I have, no doubt that CBS is going to pick up a conference and have games. So we're going to have over the air college free television, but I think we're also going to have, the streaming services involved, and you're going to have, these companies that stream all of these games that aren't on over-the-air TV. So I don't know where it's headed, but the possibility of another playoff tournament down the road probably exists, but I think it'll be sometime in the future.
Yeah, no, not near term. I agree with you, and I think it's the eyeballs. I mean, that's what they're looking at. And I go back to, in the fall of '92, Jackie Sherrill's second year at Mississippi State. He was speaking to the Touchdown Club in Memphis at the University Club in the dining room. It was packed. There were people looking in from outside. He said, going forward, we're going to go to an NFL model. AFC East-West, NFC East-West. We have 4 super conferences. Everybody else is going to be scrambling, to survive. We're there. I mean, we're there now. The NIL is, and I would keep an eye. I got an interesting thing last night. You probably are aware of it, about Malik Murphy and the bidding war at Texas, and Arch Manning's, and he's willing to redshirt. Remember his uncle Eli. Remember a friend of mine was at a scrimmage when Eli was a true freshman. He goes, "This guy's different. He's audibling, out there's an 18-year-old. He's seeing things other people don't see." We got to get a handle on that. And, Jalen Milroe, I don't know how good he is. I think Ty Simpson, of all these Alabama quarterbacks, God, this guy's good. I mean, we have John Hattler, who's the play-by-play voice for UT Martin football and basketball on the show a good bit with us. And, he's worked with Ty's father for 17 years. And John is a banker in his other life. He's Milburn Drysdale. But, man, I think Ty Simpson, Gary, and here's the thing. You have seen so much in your time. You and I are the same age. It's just this kid is, some of them are late bloomers, aren't they? Even though they have all the talent in the world. My youngest child turned 23 yesterday, and he's a late bloomer, but he's going to be successful in whatever he does. He's just got back out to Jackson, Wyoming yesterday for his 4th straight summer. He's going to be a world-class chef. He'll be great. But when he was 18 or 19, he wasn't like his brother, who was ready to go to college and be in that structured environment. That's kind of how I see him.
You talking about with Ty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of impact.
Yeah, he I think he's got all the tools, obviously. Rob, I don't know how this quarterback situation is gonna play out. We'll have to see. I think I said this on your show, and I said it on my show. I mean, there is a reason that they brought in Tyler Buckner, just like there's a reason that they brought in Javon Key, the safety from UAB, and they brought in these other players at different positions from the portal, is because Nick Saban's always looking to improve the roster. There's 5 guys they brought in from the portal. There's no guarantee that any of those 5 will start. At the same time, they saw an opportunity to improve their roster, so there's a chance all 5 could start. And I think at quarterback, Buckner certainly has a leg up in the from the standpoint that he was Brian Kelly and Tommy Reese's number 1 2021 quarterback recruit. He was the guy they zeroed in on, and they signed him. Ahead of a lot of other schools, including Alabama. He was with Reese for 2 years, and now he comes in here. Even though the other quarterbacks have been with Tommy through a spring, I think Buckner has the advantage going into fall camp. Now, having, as you said, seen a lot of football around here and watched Nick Saban, every one of his teams, and watched him operate in fall camp, he's going to play who he thinks is the best guy, regardless of what anybody else thinks. And so whoever starts that first game against Middle Tennessee is going to have earned it, and not because, there were any promises made. And we do know that a lot of things get said in the recruiting process, even at Alabama. I mean, I think when you recruit someone, you generally don't tell them, well, you're not going to play. Well, we want you to come here, but you're going to sit on the bench for 3 years. I think that Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, Holstein, Lonergan, all of them were told, we wouldn't offer you a scholarship if we didn't think you had what it took to be the starting quarterback at the University of Alabama at some point. And so all these guys came here to start, came here to be the guy. You know, the timetable is different for all of them. But as far as Ty Simpson is concerned, I'm with you. I mean, being the son of a coach, a college football coach, I do think he processes information. You're right. I think he was in, meetings as a kid and in the locker room and understanding how to watch film and watching his dad at night, probably, initially on the projector and then later on the, the laptop. And he's probably in there with him. Dad, what's this? Dad, what's that? What are you doing here? Yeah. So he, it's kind of second nature to him, getting back to what we're talking about with Bryce Young. I think a lot of the same stuff with Ty Simpson. He's probably at 10 or 11 years old. He probably could look at an offensive formation and tell you, this is this and this guy's this guy and this is, So I think he has a leg up on a lot of other quarterbacks from that standpoint. Like you're referencing the Mannings, when you come from that background. Now you still have to have the physical tools. I mean, you could be a brainiac at breaking down film, but if you don't have the ability, maybe you'll get to be a coach. Maybe they'll bring you in as an analyst, but they're not going to bring you in to play quarterback. So you still got to be able to play. Yeah, but having said that, Ty Simpson, there is no doubt that he understands the game and he sees it from a set of eyes that even really more, kids probably that are just as talented as him, he may have a leg up on them because even as a kid growing up, they were not around football maybe until they were, 11 or 12 years old. Yeah. And he's been around it since he was literally, in the cradle. Yeah.
And I love the way you broke that down. And I still, you've been doing this a while and you've followed Alabama. That program, you and Rodney Orr, you do a great show Tuesday nights at 6:30. It's up on YouTube. If you can't see it live, you can always go back. Tell people how they can catch that show and what y'all talked about Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tider Insider TV, which is every Tuesday night at 6:30 on WVUA 23 here locally in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham market. But we also stream it live, so you can always go to WVUA23.com and you can watch it no matter where you are, on your wireless device, your phone, wherever you want to log into the internet. And then it's also, as you said, we post it to the internet. Rodney links it to his site, TiderInsider.com, so you can always watch it if you go to WVUA23.com and pull past episodes, or you can, like you said, go to YouTube and just Google Tider Insider TV and all the episodes will pop up. This past Tuesday night, we had a strong dose of Alabama softball as they get ready for this regional. And in fact, Montana Fouts, I had Patrick Murphy on my show yesterday morning, and he did say that she's got a hyperextension in her leg and is literally day to day. So that was the first update on Montana Fouts. They just don't know if she's going to be able to pitch or not beginning tomorrow night. And, I think it's very unlikely that she'll pitch, but she's determined to. We talked Bama football. We talked the recruiting portal and what Alabama's done with that and looking to do. Latest recruiting news. We talked Bama baseball, obviously, with all that they've been through. And I remember doing your show that Thursday morning, and I had gotten a text that morning about 7:30 that I didn't know that Brad. I'm going to be clear on this. I did not know that Brad Bohannon was going to be fired. Yeah. But I had gotten a text about 7:30 that morning that there was going to be some big Alabama breaking baseball news. And my thought process then was probably not good. And the guy said, it could be right around 10 o'clock during your show. So when I went on I didn't mention it on your show because, I just didn't, we were on there with Dudley Dawson and I just didn't really, have any more to say. But when I got on my show, I did say, hey, be aware, there might be some breaking news during this show, during my show this morning on Alabama baseball. And sure enough, so we discussed the job that they've done, the team has done, dealing with that, which is probably, I don't know that we've ever seen that, from a sitting college Division I coach during the season to be dismissed, with all indications being he's being dismissed because he was involved in a wager against his own team. And for them to bounce back and win that Vanderbilt series. In fact, they went out that Thursday night. I thought they might get beat 11-2, and they won 11-2. So we've been talking a bunch of baseball.
Yeah, I know you got to. I know you got to get into your show, but but you're right though. You're responsible journalism, trust but verify. If you and I went with everything that came at us every night, we'd have a lot of crazy stuff out there. But look, Gary, always love having you on here. I'll be listening to your show here after we're off the air. Until then, have a great week and appreciate your time always.
Thanks, Rob.
You bet. All right, that is Gary.
Hey y'all, it's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Be joined in just a minute by Matt Dean over from Rhodes College in Memphis. AD Angle 0.50. John Hartwell will be back on with us tomorrow morning, reporting from the Sun Belt Conference meetings down in Destin, Florida. What a terrible place to have it. And I really mean it, man, when I say, why don't they have these winter meetings in Minot, North Dakota, or, let's say maybe Nelson, Nebraska, but if they have them in the winter, they'll be in Jackson, Wyoming, Jackson's Hole, or they'll be in not Whitefish, Montana. That is just, not that much colder, but it's closer to the North Pole. But anyway, there's a lot going on. I love Gary's take on Alabama. That was some interesting information. Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees had gone after Tyler Buckner when he was out in San Diego. That was their number one choice, and they beat Alabama to get him. Now, Tommy Rees goes to Alabama to be the offensive coordinator, and Tyler Buckner follows him down there. I start connecting these dots. They must think he's pretty good. I mean, I think he's got 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions with 3 career starts. You need more starts for the NFL to think you're something. But then again, Anthony Richardson, only 13 starts to his name. He ends up being the number 4 pick in the draft. He's got a $33.9 million contract on the table. I believe $20 million of that, as they say down in South Alabama, is guaranteed. It's guaranteed now. So we'll see what happens there. But the quarterback situation, wow. Georgia is stockpiling talent at the quarterback position. Dylan Riala, wow. This kid, number 1 player in the country. Father played in the NFL. His dad's a lineman. He's going to Georgia. They already got, Prebliss, who signed or committed back in October. Then you've got Gunnar Stockton, Carson Beck. I mean, there's some serious Brock Vandegrift, some serious talent on that roster. How many of these guys are going to stick around? And we're getting to the point now where if a team has a lot of guys on the depth chart at quarterback, the teams that are closest to them are going to start assuming, well, we're going to get one of those guys. Now, is it right to celebrate you're getting the guy who couldn't get the job at Georgia or Clemson or Alabama or whatever? Better be careful about that. You know, we don't know. I mean, Tyler Buckner, was he going to, if he stayed at Notre Dame, was he going to beat out Sam Hartman, who transferred from Wake Forest? I mean, that's a big if. And Matt Dean would probably say, I just brought up a rhetorical question, Matt. Had Tyler Buckner stayed at Notre Dame, Tommy Rees, his offensive coordinator who recruited him, along with Brian Kelly, who's now at LSU, Tommy Rees had just gone to Alabama. Tyler Buckner had stayed at Notre Dame. He had 3 career starts, 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Would he have been able to beat out the incoming transfer via the portal, Wake Forest, one of the ACC's greatest quarterbacks ever, probably the greatest ever at Wake Forest? Would he have beaten out Sam Hartman and been the starting quarterback at Notre Dame?
Well, good morning, Rob.
Nobody knows, but
well, I think he knows because he left, right? I mean,
yeah.
Honestly, that was one of the biggest offseason portal acquisitions at the quarterback spot in the country, right? I mean, I talked about it yesterday. Iowa getting Cade McNamara was huge. Iowa had, multiple draft picks on their defense in this year's draft, and then now you get a quarterback along with Eric All, who was a tight end that played for McNamara at Michigan. And Iowa's had a lot of success with developing tight ends. You look at the most recent one, Sam Laporta, who was drafted in the 2nd round by the Lions.
Yeah.
So I think the answer is yes. And then I think that's, Rob, we're going to agree to disagree on the portal some. But one of the things I like about the portal is it gives these kids immediate free agency. And what I mean by that is when someone comes in, is a player, am I better? Is it going to be a dead heat, or is he clearly better? And he felt he was clearly better. So he decides to play the game as well, and it sets off a chain reaction. And, for Coach Freeman in year 2 at Notre Dame, this is a big get because he's going to have a good defense. That's his forte, former defensive coordinator. He's going to have a good defense, and now he's trying to shore up the offense.
Yeah. Well, the portal, I will agree with you. That it gives you immediate free agency.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking, well, I'm not going to beat this guy out, or I don't think I am, and you transfer, that's where I'm going to fight for everything I get. I'm competitive like you are, but I guess I think the trend and that I'm seeing with the portal is it's rare to see a Power 5 to Power 5. You don't see that much.
No, you don't.
You don't. It's mainly Power 5 down to Group of 5 or even lower, and then it's Group of 5 up to Power 5. Again, just some examples. But I'll say this. They all want to play. But if you've been in a place for 2 or 3 years and you're not past 3rd team on the depth chart, move on. I agree with that. But at the same time, one semester of, early graduate from high school comes in after spring practice. He's not 1st team on the depth chart. And then you transfer. I don't like that.
No, there's a lot of bounciness. I agree. And I don't like all that either. I do think at the quarterback spot, it's unique because every other position group, you have multiple people playing on the field at the same time, right? I mean, you got a bunch of old linemen, a bunch of D linemen, linebackers, wide receiver groupings, DB groupings, whatever. You got one quarterback, Rob. And really, it's almost like the point guard situation when I coached college basketball. If you got 2, you got none, right? So you're looking to find that one person. And correct. If Notre Dame is seeking the Wake Forest transfer, then their staff has lost confidence in Tyler Buckner. Exactly. So that it's not necessarily the kid's afraid of the competition as much as the staff wants the competition because they don't think the current guy is good enough. That's the way I view it. Yeah.
Well, I can assure you that, Peyton Thorne transferred from Michigan State out of Naperville, Illinois. You know what that town's famous for? My friend Brock Kreitz came down to Ole Miss in 1993, played for Billy Dog Brewer. The next year, sockless Joe Lee Dunn was the coach.
Yes.
95, 96, 97, the Riverboat Gambler. Thomas Hawley Tuberville was his coach. 3 coaches in 5 years.
Yeah.
But he gave me but Brock Kreitz, you know what he's famous for?
Tell me.
Ole Miss was playing Georgia between the hedges in 1996. And Hines Ward and Georgia, they had them backed up, in the shadow of their goal line. And they threw a bounce pass, a jump pass over the middle to Hines Ward. And he was gone. It's going to be like 95, 100-yard touchdown. And Brock Kreitz and Walker Jones ran him down in the open field. And that's one thing Brock is famous for. The other thing, because I worked with him, he's from Naperville, Illinois. One time, he called me Bobby, because my name, Robert Lee Browne Jr. He goes, "Hey, Bobby," he goes, "you want a Rhodes soda?" And I'm like, "What the hell is a Rhodes soda?" That's what the folks in Naperville, Illinois call a cold beer.
Yeah.
And of course, when I went to Auburn, I remember guys would come up and go, "Hey, Rob, how about a cold beer?" I'm like, "Well, is there any other kind?" As opposed to, "Yeah, give me one of those ones that's been in your trunk for a week that's boiling hot." I mean, sorry. The only place I've ever been in the world where people drink beer at room temperature at 9 a.m. is in train stations in Munich and Frankfurt. They like to drink their beer in Germany. But anyway.
Rob, let me tell you something. Naperville, Illinois is one of the best communities in America. I mean, it's probably if it's further south, it's like a retirement community. It's a great place, but it's just west of Chicago. Yeah. You're going to have the lake effect there. You're going to get a lot of cold weather, a lot of wind chill, a lot of snow. But man, it is just the whole suburbs in Chicago. And granted, it's 45, 50 minutes from Chicago. Yeah. But Naperville's outstanding, dude. It's just tremendous. I think you've been there before, but it's
I have not been there, but I know.
And they got great high school athletics. They got a small college. North Central College has won multiple Division III championships in football. They have a tremendous football program at their local college. It's called North Central. They also have one of the greatest iconic track cross-country coaches in America. They're known for their last chance meet in track and field. The reason it's last chance, you being a track guy, these kids are coming there in May to try to qualify for the nationals, right? It's the last chance meet. So it's really cool community.
Well, it is. And I'm telling you, right near there, there's not too far from DeKalb, Illinois, University of Northern Illinois, the Huskies. Okay. So I like how, these towns, and it's just funny. So Peyton Thorne is coming into Auburn. His dad is a coach. I mean, it's in his DNA. It's in his blood. I watched video. I've been studying everything I can.
I've watched a lot too. I watch your assessment. Give me your assessment.
He's the leader, man. I mean, I tell you, he's like, you remember that movie, We Were Soldiers? They were watching the officers training the men, and Mel Gibson, who at that time was Colonel Hal Moore in the movie, a true story. He died February of 2017. He was 94 years old. Was a lieutenant general when he got out of the Army, by the way, in 1977 at the age of 52. And, they're watching him, and he says, "See that one right there? Right there. There's your leader. There's your platoon leader." Yeah. Making sure his guys have dry socks. They got plenty to eat. Just always like Peyton Thorne, all this video I've seen in practice, he's checking on everybody. He's a cerebral guy. But then I also saw some stuff Doug Dean sent me, just, it's some people, about Robbie Ashford. He is working his butt off. Yeah. It's going to be a ferocious, fierce competition. So is Holden Gariner, which is, you want competition. As a coach, if you got a player that's your point guard, you coach for, I mean, you're Coach Dean. You always will be emeritus. But the point is, if that guy doesn't have any competition, he's honestly not going to work as hard as he would. It's just like the old experiment. You got one mouse in a cage, one rat. he ain't got to worry about much, especially if it's just him and a bunch of women. He's got a harem. But if you put another male in there, that testosterone level goes up. That's. But I think Peyton Thorne's got a lot of I think he's got a lot of upside. But Mike G out of the War Report said when he gets flushed out of the pocket, that's where he struggles. So Auburn's offensive line better be a hell of a lot better because they've been next to awful for the last few years.
So you do know 2 years ago, Michigan State had a tremendous year. He had 27 touchdowns, only 10 picks. They were 11-1, and he threw for over 3,200 yards. Now, he also had that year a young man who's from the Memphis area, Arlington, Tennessee, Kenneth Walker in the backfield.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
He transferred there with Mel Tucker, and then Walker is now running for the Seattle Seahawks. So last year, they were only 5-7, but what people don't realize, they lost a lot of people from that 21 team, and it wasn't on him. And I think the running game was much different, which, as you know, Rob, helps a quarterback. Every good quarterback needs a running game, but he still threw for 2,679 yards last year and 19 touchdowns. So I think he got a steal. If you remember, we were debating a few weeks ago whether you wanted Peyton Thorne or Casey Thompson, right? Both in the portal. I kind of lean towards Casey because outside of the pocket, Rob, he could do more, in my opinion, than Peyton. But I think Peyton is going to it's going to be a great quarterback room. And really, Hugh Freeze has always done a great job with quarterbacks. I think it's going to be a great competition. It wouldn't surprise me early on in non-conference, Rob, if he gave both kids some reps in games. Would it you?
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And Holden Gariner's got a lot of upside. That you want this kind of a quarterback room.
Yeah.
Bo Nix didn't have that. He didn't have any competition. And, he and Harsin, Bo Nix had some – I think he just got tired of the pressure. Look, when you sign up for Auburn, that's what you sign up for. But I wish Bo nothing but the best. I mean, your son knows
Bo's going to win the Heisman Trophy this year, Rob.
Yeah. I'm sure your son knows him. They're about the same age.
Bo's going to have 30 in the college football playoff. I'll be in Vegas for the Pac-12 championship prior to that, and Bo Nix for the Heisman. That's what I'm selling on right now.
Look, I'm pulling for him. I was mad when he left, but I think I understand why he left. He just, my God,
well, it had to be Harsin, right? Bo didn't see the future with him as the coach, right?
Yeah. Because his family is as Auburn as it gets, and his father's the head football coach over at that dynasty, Phoenix City Central, where they at any given time have 25 or 30 Division I prospects on the high school football team. So wish him nothing but the best. And I'm telling you, the competition, it doesn't matter the sport. You want competition. I mean, if you're the only child, you think that the world revolves around you in a way. Both of my parents are only children, but I'm one of three and I've got four. But I'll tell you, when I talk to my friends, and they've got 5 or 6 kids, the moms always will tell me, they'll say, Rob, I say, how did you negotiate just breakfast in the morning? She goes, with 5 boys and my husband, and they're all big boys, I kind of just had to do it in stages. I'd put oatmeal, bowl of oatmeal, then I'd bring the sausages and the eggs and the pancakes. And, it's kind of like over here at the cherry farm. We come in from duck hunting, 10 to 15 guys. We got Sag out there and MJ cooking on that flat iron, the flat griddle or whatever. You're just making it as fast as you can, and they're inhaling it. But you learn to compete is what I'm saying. Because if you don't get out of bed early enough, you don't get anything. And if your mom and dad are good people, they'll say, that's what happens when you sleep in. Okay. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back. Matt Dean, Rhodes College, and Yancey Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline will join us here in a little bit after this. Rob Browne back with my esteemed friend, colleague, the esteemed colleague, friend,
That sounds
Matt
good.
Dean, the coach. You're an esteemed friend. I'm telling you, unbelievable, though, what you're saying about competition and what the Notre Dame coaches were saying. We went out, we sought out Sam Hartman. He was a record-setting quarterback at Wake Forest because we didn't have enough confidence in you. Now, Ohio State didn't have enough confidence in Joe Burrow to make him the starter, but it worked out. But, his first year at LSU, he only completed 54.7% of his passes. His next year, he was at 78.6% with Joe Brady as the passing game coordinator and Steve Ensminger. So it's just sometimes a change of venue is the best thing that can ever happen to you.
And it's funny you say that. I was we've talked about this before. I was present at one of Joe Burrow's greatest losses, the night when the fighting Texas Aggies in 7 overtimes beat LSU.
Yeah.
74-72. You talk about one of the most memorable games. I'll never go to a more exciting game that we thought was over, and then and it just kept going and going and going. And that was late in the season, Rob. And that's the first time I ever watched Joe Burrow. I wasn't really watching him on TV prior because they weren't having that. I didn't even think that year they were 9-3-ish. They weren't having a great year, right? Well, it's still a very good year, but you know what I'm talking about. And then next year to do what they did, and not only did they run the table, they just kicked everybody's tail. I mean, let's be honest. They really didn't have – I mean, they had a somewhat close game at Alabama that year, but if you remember right, they were leading most of the game. It was a back-and-forth battle, but the night they lost to the Aggies, you could see some of the things that made Joe special. It's not like Joe's going to beat you in a 40-yard dash, but he is shifty out of the pocket. He'll run for a first down when there's nothing there, when they take the spy off of him. He's such an accurate thrower. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He's not afraid in zone coverage to make that tough throw over cover 2. I love the guy. I think the Bengals, because of them and the wide receiver situation with Jamar Chase, if you keep T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd is very underrated. I think they're a Super Bowl contender for the next decade, Rob. I really do, and it's all because of that position we were talking about with Notre Dame. It's the same thing. It's the quarterback spot. Look at this, Rob. Quinn Ewers had a really good year last night after coming back to Texas from Ohio State, right? Transfer. Arch Manning signs, and Arch helps bring in this incredible recruiting class, but Arch knows he's not the starting guy this year. And should he be? He's 18 years old. But Arch will take advantage of the situation, get reps when he can. They'll keep him under the 4-game thing unless something goes bad. And then Arch will, in a year from now, be a little bit like Joe Burrows. He's got a lot of similar traits.
Yeah. Well, and you go back the 2019 season for LSU, LSU beat Auburn 23-20. And Auburn's DJ Williams, running back out of Sebring, Florida, broke off that run. It was a 70-yarder. I mean, he was gone up the middle. And Auburn probably wins that game, and he steps out of bounds right before he goes in the end zone.
I forgot about that game. You're right. That was the game.
And you're going to have in any great season a couple of those kind of games where, and my son was at that game.
So wasn't that an afternoon game, Rob, if I'm not mistaken, or was it?
Yes, it was. Okay. And my son was at the game, and he said, "Dad, man, this atmosphere down here," he goes, "LSU people," he goes, "they're not feeling it." He goes, "This is our time." And I said, I think it's going down. I remember telling him, I said, "I think we're going to take them down to the last drive, but it's you can't make any dumb mistakes." And if
I remember correctly, Rob, Bo Nix was your quarterback then, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Bo, that one year, Bo had a really solid year.
9-3.
Yeah.
And then they went and lost to Minnesota in the Hall of Fame Outback Bowl.
That was a good Minnesota team. That was a really good Minnesota team.
Tell you about recruiting. I studied that roster of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
There were 4 players that were a 4-star, and that was it. Everybody else was a 3-2 or 9-rated. Auburn had almost 60 4 stars and 5 stars. They dominated Auburn, took them to the woodshed,
Yeah.
and embarrassed them. But a couple of things I remember. Gus, of course, said this is a business trip. And Auburn's going down there to get butter. Butter. B-U-T-T-E-R. Butter. Not better, but butter.
Yeah.
But Minnesota just dominated Auburn. They had an offensive lineman. I think the kid was 417 pounds.
He was huge. Wasn't he their center? Big cat. Got drafted this year, I think, because, big dude.
He was ginormous.
That was their left tackle. You're right. You're right.
He was a tackle. And just dominant. Look, if you don't want to be there, you ever notice people's body language? I love that magnet, freezer magnet. It says, I don't need your attitude. I have my own. These SEC teams are bad about not giving a damn in these bowl games. If it's not a playoff or something, they've been doing that for a while. They pout. Okay. It's wrong. And I put that on the coaches. That's when as a coach, you go in there and say, let me tell you something, son. You have a scholarship. Okay. And it provides you with an incredible opportunity that most people could only dream of. By God, when we go on this game, if you're not committed to winning, just like it's the Iron Bowl, or just like it's the Egg Bowl, just like it's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Florida, Georgia, don't go. Because I have zero tolerance for fans who say these games don't matter. Hell yeah, they do, because the hotel rooms aren't free. Gas and air travel, that's not free. The tickets aren't free. Missing work and taking your family all over the country, that's got a price to it. That means you're going to have to let your wife go shopping somewhere a lot. But you know what? Half the people at the games are women anyway, because all the guys are there with a date. They got a girl with them, or the girl's there with a guy. I'm just saying that there's a lot you can learn from these football. And I don't know. Just I think people, you look at the competition, and then you go to a play in a bowl game. I'll tell you what, and it doesn't pain me to say this because I'm gonna be objective and fair on the air. Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr. I got a lot of respect for them. I've bled with these guys. I've fought with them. I've been through hell and back. Yeah. These are my teammates. I'm playing in the bowl game against Kansas State. And Kansas State had the upper hand. And then Alabama came out in the second half and just absolutely just kicked them to the curb, just manhandled them. But I admire and respect those guys because you know what? The fans could get hurt driving to the game. They still go.
Well, and don't underestimate the impact of that decision to Bryce Young also being the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of character intangibles that young man has that you're looking for in an NFL franchise. Also, I want to make a quick assessment on college football, and I want to talk about 3 stars versus 4 stars quickly. Yeah. 5 stars are unique freaks and unicorns, and that people probably rarely miss on a 5-star. But a 3 and a 4-star evaluation-wise by someone who's not a coach, where, Rob, you may run a 4.45 in a camp you go to, I run a 4.59.
Yes.
But you know what, Rob, they don't know? The next 2 years, how hard you work in the weight room versus me. And in football, the offseason in the weight room matters more than any other sport. And you see so many 3 stars and even 2 stars become NFL players because they outwork the people that were told their whole time, you are the alpha, you are the dog, you are the stud. It comes down to in football, baby, you better get in that weight room. You better work. If you don't, you're going to get passed. And I think that's what happens sometimes with these programs.
All right. This is, you just nailed it. And again, I've done this so many times, I'm going to do it again. Typically, out of 131 Division I schools, there'll be about 3,300 kids in this country. will sign Division I football scholarships.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe 1%. That's 33. Okay, are 5 stars.
Right.
350 to 400 of them are going to be 4 stars.
Right.
So that's roughly 400 kids. So around close to 2,900 of them are going to be 3 stars or 2 stars or non-rateds.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree with you. And you said something. Coach Sherrill is going to be back on with us tomorrow. Love to have you back on if you can. He's going to be back on tomorrow at 9, permitting. He's got to go to Arkansas. And he said, hey, sorry about the technical issues, and we'll work that out. But he called me after the show. You don't want to miss this tomorrow at 9. I want you on. I really, really, really want you on because I want to give credit to you. And I told him after the show what you said. Why, if we're going to from a 4 to a 12-team college football playoff, why don't we have a national championship playoff for the schools other than that, the group of 5 or whatever? Now, they're going to be group of 5 schools we know get into the Power 5 deal. But we're going to have a really cool discussion tomorrow, and I need my coach there, and Bo Carter's going to be on with us too from out in Dallas. He knows from his days at Mississippi State and in the Southwest Conference and the Big 12 office. Now a writer for the National Football Foundation and the Baseball Writers of America.
Well, I need to talk to Bo because, Rob, I haven't told you this, but I've got my template chapter outlines for my book. So I'm working on my book, and Bo Carter's the perfect guy for me to talk to about some publishing thoughts because it's coming. You're going to have me on here one day, and I'm going to be promoting my book, just so you know. But I'll book it. I'll try to get on at 9 o'clock tomorrow if that works. Yeah, absolutely, because it is going to be. I mean, there's just so much to talk about, and the college football. You talked about, and I got a text last night from a really good friend of mine whose brother played at Texas. Yeah,
about Malik Murphy and the bidding war and what's going on out there. Malik is a freshman. He's a rising sophomore. Backing up, he looks like Ken Capps, one of our friends of the show, Football Writers Association of America. And God, what a great writer he is out in Dallas. He's a Texas grad, Texas
right.
His wife is a Horned Frog. But he's been saying that Quinn Ewers is the starter.
Yeah.
He's been telling us this. He said the backup for Malik Murphy, and it all came true. And Arch is prepared to do it his way. Arch is different. His uncle Eli was at Ole Miss 5 years.
That's right.
I was telling a friend of mine was at a scrimmage, and he came back. I remember him telling us, he goes, I watched a scrimmage back when you could go to scrimmages back then. He said Eli's out there audibly. He's 18 years old.
Yeah.
But he's a man. But it's like, if you grow up the son of an engineer or a doctor or an architect, a lot of things I can tell you one thing. I know a stud is 16 inches, 14 inches on the inside. My dad's listening right now, but I have measured so many houses and lots for development and all. I'm the only guy who 30 minutes after graduating from college was taken over to Jordan-Hare Stadium with my dad and the university architect who used to work for him in Memphis and measured off the stadium because he had this idea of taking the stadium down about 10 rows deeper, creating an atmosphere like the swamp.
Yeah.
In Gainesville. But you pick up your kids. You've got one that's an FA who's 24, one that's 28 that's a coach.
Yeah.
But they grew up with that. I bet they can diagram a play. Now your wife may not show, God help me, but I bet when the three of y'all get together, watching the game is pretty fun.
Well, Rob, before Julie and I got married, and shout out to my lovely wife, it's her 55th birthday today. She knew what she was getting into. I said, listen, I'm a sports guy. I'm going to coach. I'm going to watch it on TV. If you can't handle that, we can part ways right now. I want you to be happy, but she's the biggest fan. We were talking last night. She's trying to get her plane tickets for Oregon, Hawaii non-conference football. And then, we're not trying to jinx them, but we're trying to have the weekend off of the Pac-12 championship game to go to Vegas. I'll tell you a true story. Last year, it just upsets me to this day. It's early fourth quarter. The Ducks are leading the Beavers 34-17. And I told Julie, get on that computer and look at flights to Vegas. And it's the worst thing you can do. And as a coach, I know it. It's you can't count your chickens before they hatch, brother. And sure enough, the next possession, our punter dropped the snap. It was a perfect snap. If he just kicks the ball 40 yards, we probably win the game. But then they get it at the 2-yard line, punch it in. Next thing you know, we're trailing. And then we get down to the goal line, first and goal to 5. We can't get in. We lose. But I'm just telling you, my wife loves the fact that she has the opportunity 2 or 3 times a year to go out the West and see her son and watch college football. And I think, anytime you go to the tailgate, Rob, I was amazed the first time I went to the Grove at Ole Miss. Just amazed how much fun people and how much they're doing. Rob, I've never been to an Auburn tailgate. I need to go there with you sometime. I need to pick a game and go down there with you. But like when we were at Baton Rouge for LSU, the traditions, Texas A&M, the traditions, been to Alabama before, obviously been to Neyland, but I've never been to Gainesville, but I heard my son went, Tyler went when he was in college. I heard it's a tough venue for visitors. And I'll have to ask Ben Troop about that because I heard it's brutal. It's brutal. You've been there.
Oh, God.
And as the older I get, Rob, you know what I tell my kids this. I said, guys, go to home games.
Yeah.
Won't be unless you're playing for the whole thing or go somewhere. It's a big game. I get it. But go to your home games. That's why the season tickets are important because on the road, you are not welcome.
Well, the funny thing is when you go, I go to places, I get along with everybody. I don't have problems.
Yeah.
Some people will tell you that LSU is a terrible place to go, or Florida, or Georgia, or whatever. I have fun anywhere.
Yeah.
At Neyland Stadium, man, this crowd of some 105,000 comes rising to their feet on the banks of the Tennessee River. And in just a few moments, the pride of the Southland Band will come out and form the giant T. And ladies and gentlemen, it'll be football time in Tennessee. Here come the Volunteers. I'm getting chills saying.
I know, just thinking about it, right? Have you ever been to Clemson, Rob, for a football game?
God. Oh, God, that place is awesome. Hey,
you know what?
Hold that thought here. I want to hear this right after this, more with Matt Dean and Yancey Porter after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Right. I'll tell you one thing, Matt. It never gets. It's never a dull moment. You talk about going to your home games. Absolutely. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter who the game is, who's playing, or whatever.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, Rob. And quickly, I want to tell you a story about Clemson. So Tyler was with the advanced travel team a few years ago when A&M traveled to Clemson. So we drove down. It was only 9.5 from Memphis, maybe 10. We broke it up, but anyway, we're way up there, and the game ends up 24-10. So Clemson was in control, and that's one of the years that I believe Clemson. Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback, so they either won it or were in the Final Four, right? So after the game, everybody is just almost like y'all have a great team, played hard today. Good luck, safe travels. and I was like just floored, Rob, at how genuine and sincere their fan base was. Now, I probably didn't run into the wrong fans, but I ran into the right fans. But I'm just telling you, sometimes you don't always get that leaving the stadium in other venues in the SEC.
No, you don't, and they appreciate it. It's like Kentucky basketball. My first encounter with Notre Dame football fans, in a big way. I remember they were playing Alabama in 1986 in Birmingham, and they know the game. They appreciate the game. Wow, do they appreciate the game? And wherever you go, people are going to judge the school by the encounters they have with the fans. And David Housel at Auburn, sports information director emeritus, and Buddy Davidson, and Reba Gulledge, just getting to in high school, getting to work up in the press box and part of my freshman year, and then just writing for the Plainsman and interactions with them over the years. I guess I'm biased, but I base everything on them. But it's in that press box. You are representing your school, and as a professional working press box, no cheering's allowed. Man, I have had some serious, basically that would reduce most people to tears, arse chewings, when I was afraid. You can't cheer in the press box, okay?
You can't.
Remember that.
You're a worker. You're a neutral worker.
You're a worker. You're a neutral worker. It's kind of like the United Nations, or like an embassy. There's nothing you're safe, and you are representing. And when people come to Auburn, our friends, we go out of our way to make them feel welcome. And when I've been at LSU games or whatever, they are the funnest people. Hell, I've been at the Florida State LSU game in Tallahassee, and after the game, the LSU fans, I was a spotter for Bob Neal and Tim Foley for the TBS, game of the week. I remember one time in October of 1990 in Tallahassee. That's when LSU and Florida State had that bench clearing brawl. God, that was a fight to remember. And after the game, the LSU fans were out there they were making, of course, hot dogs and hamburgers. No, they were making jambalaya, boudin. It was so good. I think I ate 3 or 4 bowls of it. It was just incredible. But the experiences that you have, they carry so much weight. Like, I want to go to an Iowa game, and I bet you they cook. Iowa's known for a lot of things. Illinois, I think, is the biggest corn state in America. It's not Iowa. It's not Nebraska. I thought it was. I think it's Illinois.
They're all the top 3 or 4 up there.
Nebraska,
Iowa, Illinois. They're all right there.
But Iowa is known for their pork chops. Des Moines.
Yeah.
Some cities are steakhouse. Iowa's an incredible state. It's where John Wayne is from. Don't forget that. You do know that, don't you?
Listen, I'm a proud Iowan.
Wait a minute.
I love everything about our state. The only thing that brought me south is the winter weather. And it's kind of like when I was talking earlier about Naperville. If it wasn't for the weather, Naperville would be the crowdedest place in America.
Well, and you got to love these small towns where, and again, you look at so many of the kids, Georgia for a long time, Vince Dooley, they wouldn't recruit kids from big cities. They went to the small towns.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what they did. And then they started recruiting. Now they recruit everywhere. Yeah. Georgia's recruiting, it's different. But you look at Oregon. I remember, when Oregon played for the national championship in 2010, they had 18 players out of 105 who made the trip to Glendale from the state of Oregon. But, that's not surprising. But, by the way, your son lives out there not too far from Portland.
Yeah.
There's a direct flight from Eugene to Dallas-Fort Worth or Portland to Dallas-Fort Worth.
You can go direct from Dallas-Fort Worth to Eugene. That's normally how we go. We go Memphis, Dallas to Eugene.
Okay. So now there's a great baseball movie. My wife's favorite actor is Hoot Gibson. No, I'm kidding. It's Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Okay. You've heard of him. And his father, was that it, Audrey? Bing Gibson
That independent baseball team. Yes.
The Battered Bastards of Baseball. Have you ever watched that documentary on Netflix?
No. And we talked about this, and it's on my to-do list here shortly.
You got to watch it.
Another great Kurt Russell movie with Robin Williams is The Best of Times. Remember the high school football story built when they come back and play their old rivals, and they lost the championship game in high school. Best of Times, Kurt Russell, Robin Williams. If you haven't watched it, you need to go watch it. It's a hoot. The Best of Times.
Well, I will definitely. The Best of Times, Kurt Russell and Robin Williams.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now for you, just so you know.
Okay. I'm gonna do that because I'm gonna tell you the great filmmakers and the documentarians. And again, an ad. Keep your fingers crossed. It's up for a couple of awards for Best Documentary Awards. Sewanee 1899 Unrivaled.
It was outstanding. I watched
Norman
it, Robin.
Jefferson.
It was outstanding.
Yeah, I've got. Did I give you the copy? I've got a copy in my truck.
Norman sent it to me, right?
Okay, Norman did. Okay,
And
it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
You got me and my family and I are watching it. We're all Rhodes people because I've worked there 32 years, and it was we were even mentioned in the documentary because they beat us in that year. So incredible. They did great work.
The oldest rivalry. Is it the oldest? I mean, it's been played for ever.
Gosh, it's right up there. We call it the oldest rivalry in the South, but I would hate. I'm going to need a historian like Bo Carter to research that for me, maybe.
Okay, because I know that the what they call the Deep South's oldest rivalry is Auburn, Georgia.
Right.
February 20th, 1892. Auburn 10, Georgia nothing. A crowd of 5,000 watched. Georgia's mascot was a goat.
Yeah.
He had a black and red cape. After the game, Vince Dooley was interviewed in the series Saturdays in the South, the 8-part series that came out in the fall of 2019. I think that, and Vince Dooley said, well, Auburn and Georgia played the first game in 1892 in Atlanta at Piedmont Park. And while the Auburn fans were elated at the victory, the Georgia fans had what you would say was the Deep South's first tailgate barbecue. They barbecued the goat after the game. I mean, to hear Vince Dooley say that in that accent, he was from Mobile. He went to Murphy High School.
Yeah.
And God, I tell you, history, traditions, heroes. And Matt,
so Rob,
I love when you talk about Iowa, by the way. I want to get a coach from Iowa or somebody that to kind of shed some light. The more you start connecting these programs around the country, the more interesting it is.
Yeah, I got to tell you that one of the things when we talk about building a football program, you and I just discussed the three-star versus 4-star.
Yeah.
Let's not forget the coaching and how important the coordinators are, right? Iowa has a defensive coordinator, Phil Parker, who's been rated the top defensive coordinator in the country recently, or one of the tops by a different publication. And he just keeps putting out guys in the NFL draft, especially in the secondary. And this year, Iowa had the Butkus Award winner, Jack Campbell, who was drafted in the first round at 18 by the Detroit Lions. Jack Campbell. And it's also a product of the Iowa defensive system. Riley Moss, DB, was drafted in the 4th round by the Broncos. Just another great story, a native Iowan. And then there's a name, Cooper DeJean. He's a rising junior, one of the best corners in the Big Ten. Yeah. And he's also a special teams guy, Rob. And one of the things Iowa's always had is great special teams. Jack Campbell, who's the Butkus Award winner, was on every punt coverage every time Iowa kicked the ball, which because their offense was a lot, Rob. So the bottom line is development matters, coaching matters, and probably more important is the players' work ethic once they get at the institution. And finally, I looked it up. Best of Times, 1986 movie, okay? And here's the kicker. The name of Kurt Russell's character he plays in the name, who is the high school quarterback. How about this name? Reno Hightower. That was his name, Reno Hightower. Check it out, Rob. If you got it's only about an hour 45. So
no, I'll watch the whole thing. Audrey's a Netflix junkie. Right now we're suffering through the Blacklist with Raymond Reddington.
He's my guy.
He's unbelievable. And by the way,
James Spader's an incredible actor.
Yeah, he is a great actor. I mean, he's George Plimpton, the bon voyant. That's who he is.
Yeah,
he's just oh yes, I remember your wedding in the Canary Islands. That was wonderful. The Count and the Duke were there. That was the finest meal I've ever had. But I must remind you of something. You're a fool if you think I wasn't going to find you. But those two FBI agents, Elizabeth and Reisler, I mean, they could work in today's FBI. They're so stupid. I mean, they can't ever catch anybody.
No, they can't.
I mean, they've got them right there. That's as bad as that scene in the movie The Titanic when they're both laying there. Just jump on the iceberg. You'll make it.
Yeah,
I don't get some of these movies. Some of these movies, the wailing and the crying. Save it, flush it, man. Get back to sports. I'm looking now, and I hope Yancey's okay. He had a tooth pulled the other day.
Oh, geez.
He said he was in such pain he couldn't use his mouth to talk. So
Absolutely.
I hope his dentist didn't run out of Novocaine. But anyway, Rebel Yell Hotline. It's the time of the year when I think people sort of forget what day it is. By the way, we'll be at the Barbecue Fest tonight. That's going to be a lot of fun down on the river, Memphis and May. That's where it should always be. And all these busybody idiots that want to move Barbecue Fest out of Tom Lee Park, they're idiots. They're living brain donors. Shame on them. You want that view, or do you want the view of the old fairgrounds? I mean, you want that view of the Mississippi River down there is gorgeous. You grew up on the river, didn't you, in Davenport?
Yeah, Mississippi River up in Davenport, Iowa.
And I've been to the Mississippi River up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and there's rapids. It's just it's beautiful. It ain't, it starts in Lake Itasca, Minnesota. Yeah,
Minnesota. That's
where it starts. My God, it's beautiful. It is absolutely gorgeous up there. But when getting back on the football thing, Big Ten, SEC season challenge games versus bowl games. We have never done that. That's where we're going to start going. And I'm excited about having Coach Sherrill back on tomorrow. Had some technical issues yesterday. God, he's smart. He called me after the show. We talked. I'm just like, it's like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and I go back to at the University Club in Memphis. I was there in the fall of '92, man. He's speaking to the Touchdown Club in Memphis, seeing all this stuff. He said, we're going to go to 4 super conferences and all this stuff. He was right. Yeah. He was so far ahead of everybody. It's about eyeballs, isn't it?
Well, and you look at some of the guys he's coached. I believe when I was checking his bio out yesterday, he was Dan Marino's coach at Pitt, right? Yeah. Before he left.
You know what he told a story on the show? He calls him Danny. And he said, I had to make sure it was okay with him. He said this on the show. I'm not, breaking OTR off the record at all.
Yeah.
He said this on the show. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted you to know this. I apologize for that. But he said, is it okay? Because A&M made him that unbelievable, Marlon Brando. It's an offer you
can't refuse, baby. That's right.
Yeah. And he said it was okay.
Yeah.
But he's very close to him.
Yeah.
And the stories that he tells, amazing. And I hope he stays with Fox. I wish he would come into the SEC because, he's torn between, he's at Washington State for a year, then Pitt, then Texas A&M, and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
He's, it's like if John Bonham's son is coming to Memphis tonight, the drummer.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to hear that. Do you want to give that guy any instructions on how to play the drums? just let him play.
No, it was funny. Yesterday, I felt bad because I saw the coach's mute button, on the screen, and you can see it. And I'm like, Coach just unmuted, but it's easier said than done because, I struggle sometimes with this technology, and I have like you said, my youngest Rhino is going to be 24 in July, and still lives here, though he's working. And I call him down all the time. I'm like, okay, Rhino, what's going on with this remote?
Yep.
Once he moves out, we are done.
Hey, listen, Hallie, Wilson, Max, and Mallory, my kids. They're my IT people, and then Nigel is our webmaster, and social media director, and we've hired a marketing director. This guy's incredible. He's won 2 Emmy Awards, so we're going to be launching some new stuff. And but the IT, you're right, Coach. My dad, same way. Sometimes, like my mother, yesterday, my phone's not working. I can call out, but I can't hear anybody call me, and a lady that works for her supposedly spent an hour when she was over there the other day, couldn't fix it. I went by there yesterday, and I'm not saying that I'm Mr. IT, but I said, let me see that phone. If you've got a cover on your phone, that little thing on the side that turns the ringer on or off, you can push down. I pushed it up, and I said, watch this. Oh, it works. I said, there you go.
It's called a ringer, Mom. That's right.
Nothing to it. And she's like, well, give me another shot of Redmont vodka and I'll be okay. But bottom line, this is going to be fun tomorrow. Again, talking about where we are in college football. And Matt, I get so fired up when you're on here because you genuinely give a damn. You absolutely love it. You got 2 great kids. Your wife's on board. Mine is too. We talk about this stuff 6 days a week. We do it a lot. It never feels like work. It's so much fun. And you get on here, there's always something new happening. And I'm thinking about this too. I like that optimism, like an 85 or 90-year-old buying a puppy. I love that.
Yeah.
We're going to Portland. Is that where the championship's going to be this year? No, it's Las Vegas.
Pac-12's always in Vegas now. They've moved.
Yes, it's going to say it's in Vegas. Yeah. Okay. So, bottom line, Pac-12 needs some good things. Last year the Pac-12 had 5 teams win 10 games.
It was a really good league last year.
And we're going to get into this tomorrow. Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
He's getting it going at UCLA. He's getting some big time quarterback action in the commitment world. We're going to talk about that. But look, hey, folks, run out of time today. Hope Yancey's okay. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us, and we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. When you're out and about today, just remember this. Don't walk by people without letting them know they matter. Say hello to people. We used to have heyday at Auburn. Today is heyday. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, we are out of here.